Wakkanuradu Kahnawake and welcome to this special edition of KTV. And joining us today, Chiefs Lloyd Phillips and Clinton Phillips and project leader Paul Zahard Nicholas. And today we're talking about legislation that has been put into the Parliament called S2. We've been calling it the Matrimonial Real Interest Law. And in Kahnawake, we are looking at our own legislation. And we'll talk about the reasons why we're doing that, how we're going to go about it, and what's going to be happening in the next little while. One of the things that we want to talk about is that we'll try not to make this a long, drawn-out affair, and we'll keep it to within 15 minutes so you have a rough idea what's going on, and we can get into more detail as the weeks go on. So we'll start with the S2 itself. Why are people so concerned about it?
Well, I mean, the bottom line when it comes down to S2 is another imposition of the federal government on our communities. In this case, it's very specific to lands, and it's very specific to a matrimonial home, the home that you live in. So it gets very personal very, very quickly. And by having a federal law that would override the customs, traditions, or the way things are done in communities, is simply unacceptable. As well as the way it outlines how a interest of your home could go to the spouses, and in certain cases, if it's a non-native spouse, whether it be a married or common law spouse. And it certainly is contrary to how we do things in the community.
Mm-hmm. So if people break up, now it goes to court, and now it's still going to go to provincial court. So what's the difference?
Well, there's a separation because the Kahnawake Family Homes Law, which is our version of the MRI law, it strictly talks about the family home and what's called the patrimony of the family, the family home. So it doesn't deal with the actual divorce judgments, child custody or alimony, things of that nature. It's a very complex system out there. So people still have to get that part dealt with. In the current way it works now is primarily provincial court. But when it comes to actual land on reserve and how that home will be divided, how that who can reside in the home, things of that nature, where it really touches the soul of Kahnawake, that will now be something that will be dealt with by a Kahnawake law and not have the provincial system or federal system make a determination for us.
Why does Canada keep doing this thing, let the province handle it, and why is that a problem?
It's a continuation of the way that this government has been operating. We've always been hearing for years and years of offloading of federal responsibility onto the provinces. We always maintained our historic relationship has always been with the Crown and the right of Canada, and before the British and the French, and our personal history as Kahnawake. And now they're shifting that responsibility over to the province, and trying to, I guess, minimize our rights and our history by making trying to make you very similar to what a municipality would be, and that's totally unacceptable. So we have to assert our rights, our inherent rights, our jurisdiction, to ensure that we push back whatever impositions on us, and to ensure that our rights are protected, and the way we do things customarily in Kahnawake is also protected.
Well, interestingly, of course, part of the legislation said that if you have your own law, then you can bring it forth. That hasn't happened across the country. Oddly enough, Kahnawake and Akwesasne seem to be the only two that are really looking at it. We'll talk about that in a bit. So Kahnawake immediately did say, do we need a law? We went to the community, asked for it, and a meeting was held last year, and there was a lot of support. Clinton, just maybe you can talk a little bit about that, about what community felt about this. You were at the community decision-making process, and it was a pretty interesting meeting.
Yeah, actually, I believe it was last spring we went, and the turnout was pretty good. Good, diverse part of our community was there. Organizational people, just people who had an interest, people who were curious, people who were concerned. And at the end of the session, it was clearly a loud statement from the community. We need to move. We need to do something. This needs to be a priority. And they gave us the mandate to develop our own law to counter the federal law.
We'll bring Paul in here as the guy who's actually had to get in there and get your hands dirty and help develop and keep this thing coordinated. A little bit tricky because you're looking at a law that's very technical. You have a community that says do something, but when you're going to bring it to the community, it's going to be very dry, and it may get difficult to get people to get excited about it because it's very dry. So what are some of the things we're looking at to help get the message out there?
We've developed a communications plan, and in the plan what we've done is we've taken the law. It's available on the websites. There's an executive summary that tries to, I guess, give an easier version of what's involved in the law, what's in the law. So if you're a little bit, hesitant about reading the law because it is technical, like you said, pick up the executive summary. It's a one-page document that summarizes the law. So I think that's a good start. We're also looking at different communication activities. There's going to be commercials. There's going to be ads that are going to go in local media to emphasize some of the, I guess, impacts that how Kahnawake would be impacted by this law.
Mm-hmm.
I guess how the new law will avoid Canada's implement.
Well, of course, the chiefs and yourself will be on the radio here and there. This program is one of them. Unguri Wasunga will be another, where we'll look at some of the information that needs to go out, a little bit of a review of what's happened so far.
Well, when we kicked this off, just if I can...
No, go ahead.
When we kicked this off, some people have made comments like, well, why all of a sudden, why is it, so important? Why are we trying to push this through our community? And, our window of opportunity here is very small, because if we do not have something in place by December 16th of this year, the federal law will take effect in Kahnawake. It's as simple as that. That's the need for the urgency. That's why we feel, MCK, that we need to push and bring as much information to our community, make them see the problems that we see with this law, and to develop our own by our own.
Mm-hmm. And it was tricky. I mean, we have to acknowledge Akwesasne, because we went to Akwesasne last year, and they had been working on a draft, and they kindly allowed us to use theirs as a starting
Mm-hmm.
point, but it wasn't quite as simple. There's a lot of differences and things that...
Mm-hmm.
When we took off with the Akwesasne draft, we were actually on Akwesasne's 33rd or 34th draft. So they had a couple of years of writing and I guess revising, and they gave us the 33rd or 34th draft just as a starting point. So we saved a lot of time in I guess going with Akwesasne and other I guess members within the Iroquois and communities, Six Nations being another. Mm-hmm. So that was a definite benefit.
Mm-hmm. We're going to take a short break and come back with more. In the meantime, we want you to take a look at a couple of the commercials that you'll see running. You'll see these in the papers as well and on the radio. We'll be back with our panelists in just a few moments.
Canada's S2 legislation opens the door to provincial judges deciding on all marital and common law matters in Kahnawake.
I'm so excited. My cousin and her boyfriend are moving in together.
It's nice that she already has her own home with enough room for his kids too. Hey, what if they break up?
Why? It's really her house.
Didn't you hear about the new laws? Just because she owns the house doesn't mean she gets to live there if they break up.
On December 16th of this year, Canadian and provincial laws will apply in Kahnawake. Is that what you want? Please support the Kahnawake Family Homes Law.
And welcome back. We're talking about the Kahnawake Family Homes Law, which is actually something we didn't mention earlier, because that's what we're going to be calling this to help give it it's a lot better than Kahnawake's response to Canada's S2 legislation, blah, 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 blah. So you know what we're talking about, but from here on we'll call it the Kahnawake Family Homes Law, as you saw in the spot. Chiefs Lloyd Phillips, Clinton Phillips, and Paul Zahardas and Nicholas joining us on the program. And let's talk a little bit about, we have just a couple of moments to finish up here, but Clinton, you were talking about Canada's approach to these laws and something you wanted to, during the break, get off your chest.
Yeah, well, I guess it's it boils down to the same thing with Ottawa, and even more so, I guess, with the Conservative government. the way they look at our peoples from east to west coast, and they make a law without consulting anyone or any nation, native nation in this country, and coming out with something that one model will fit everybody. And it's absolutely ridiculous to think, just what works in Kahnawake may not work in Akwesasne, what works in Akwesasne may not work in Kanesatake, and all the way down. And we're Mohawks, never mind all the nations across this country. So that cookie cutter mentality of Ottawa and the failure to consult First Nations is a huge problem, and we really have to combat that in Ottawa for sure.
And of course, what's interesting about this is that when you offload to the provinces, something like this, every province has a different set of laws. And we have to especially look at the Crees. There are Crees in Quebec, Ontario, Manitoba, right across the country. So one Cree family may have a different judgment than another Cree family just based on geography. So it is a concern. So we'll get back to the process at hand. Paul, there's a couple of things we need to talk about. First of all, there's the hearing is going to be happening at the end of May, and that's an important one because we really have to get people to get there. And council's been actively advocating for this in the past in the community decision-making process. It's been like, all right, what do you guys say? But in this case, we're going out and saying, we need it. Do we have your support? And so far, it's been overwhelmingly positive. But there's a lot of work that still has to be done as we come up to that. So let's talk a little bit about what you have in mind.
Yeah, there's a few things. We're going to be having some consultation meetings with different organizations within the community. So whether it's a staff meeting, whether it's some sort of gathering, a function, we will be attending these events and I guess letting people know about the Kahnawake family homes law, just so that people are aware. And again, hoping that they come to our May 27th meeting, or CDMP hearing.
There will also be probably a couple of kiosks over at the services complex and things like
I
that.
think that's become routine, so to speak, with CDMP, and you'll see my face at the service complex.
Fortunately, it's a handsome face, ladies and gentlemen. I guess we'll leave the final word, Lloyd, to you, and just some thoughts.
Well, this is a couple of final thoughts. That people go online and get download a copy of the law. You'll see it is, as mentioned earlier, it's very technical. It's very legalistic. It's meant to be interpreted by lawyers. So that's why we created the executive summary, and it condenses it down to maybe 13 key points within the law itself. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. We originally planned to come to the community sooner, but we've seen as we are going through this law, it was much more complex and technical than we anticipated. That's why it was pushed back a couple of months until we made sure we got it right and we consulted all the proper people. But with that said, we're hoping that this law will be ratified by the CDMP process sometime over the summer. But that's going to end the Kahnawake process. This is our law. But I want to make sure the community is aware that there are still some very technical and political elements that we have to work on. Because in order to fully offset the federal law, Canada has certain requirements that they try to impose on us, and we have to try to work out those issues. One is they view a vote is the only way of having a law that's recognized by your community, where we have the CDMP process. And another one is the enforceability with our local judges. We're working on the Justice Act, and that's going to be moving forward with the government. And in order for us to have this law fully implemented and enforceable in the community, we have to have that agreement on how the judges are going to hear this and what authority the judges are working under. Obviously, our position is under the authority of our community. So, those are highly political issues that have to take place, and they will be taking place, and it's ongoing discussion. So I just want to make sure the community is clear that even though we ratified a law this summer, it may take several months in order for it to actually fully implemented and done. And we'll keep people up to date on those issues. But it's key to understand that it's a very, very complex issue, much more complex than we initially anticipated. And we have a great team of people, legal people, working with everybody we need to ensure that this gets done as quickly as possible.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. Chiefs Phillips, in the plural, and of course Paul Nicholas joining us on the program today. So if you want to take a look at the law, we really suggest that you do take a look, because it is in the 30-day process, which will end on the 23rd of May, which is a Friday. And you can do so by going to the Kahnawake.com website, or KahnawakeMakingDecisions.com, which is the website of the Legislative Coordinating Commission. And once again, the community decision-making process, the big meeting coming up on the 27th of May, and of course more information coming up throughout the month. So thanks, gentlemen, for taking time out of your busy day, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking time out of your busy days, and thanks for watching. Niaukoa, dana onigiwahi.